Hello everyone, welcome back to Full Stack Investing. I'm Craig and this is your YouTube channel for thinking about the cutting edge of tech investing and high growth investments. And this video is going to be the first of a series of weekly portfolio updates where I just let you guys know where my portfolio is at, whether I've made money, lost money on the week, and how I'm progressing towards my goals and how I'm feeling about the market. And if you want to share your own portfolio status in the comments, then please do so and make sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. So I'm going to be going through my phone here so I can see in real time how my investments are doing, and I'll throw up on screen some screenshots so that you can see that I'm fully transparent and just show you guys exactly how I'm getting on. And as I've said in previous videos, really I try to invest in high growth tech stocks, mostly with an AI theme, and then a couple of other space and high tech companies thrown in. So I'm going to go through the full list today and just show you my cost basis and my percentage return so far. And the biggest position in the portfolio by far is Nvidia. In my main free trade account, and there are some other minor accounts which I'll throw on screen as well, I have currently £67,000 of Nvidia in my general investment account. And then if I go over to my ISA in free trade, I can see I've got another 28.7 thousand over there. So that comes out to a fairly big number. The ISA position is up 68%, and my GIA is up 22.45% in Nvidia, and I won't be selling this position anytime soon. I've held it for over a year now, I think, overall. I've been adding to it sequentially. Obviously, the GIA position, the larger amount, has been added more recently because it's not up that much. And I'm very confident in Nvidia. I know it seems like the most normie investment to make in this space because it's the world's largest and most successful company. And people often wonder, well, when something's worth over $5 trillion, how much further can it have to run? But when you look at the forward earnings, it's actually very competitive, along with most of the Mag 7, actually. They're really not that highly priced at this point compared to their historical price to earnings ratios or forward earnings ratios. Nvidia at the moment is something like 24.5 or something around that, oscillating around that value. And in this space, that's actually entirely reasonable and much lower than it has been in the past. And with earnings coming up tomorrow, and I'll try and do a video recording my reaction to the earnings report. I think that value is only continuing to move down. Very likely they will beat and raise guidance, and the forward earnings ratio will go down. And my base case scenario is that within a week or so, the price of Nvidia will begin to increase to reflect that continued earnings growth and visibility into the future. So it's a well-performing position for me, and I'm going to be holding it for the long term. I expect it. I think we could see as much as 100% return over the next year or so, which I think would be extremely strong. And we'll come back and see whether or not I was right this time next year. Okay, next largest position is the cybersecurity firm Rubrik, which took a big hit from after it listed. It was up quite a lot at one point. I can just check here on free trade. It was up nearly $100 a share, and then it fell right back down to just below $50 a share. And then in and around that area, I started adding to Rubrik. I thought that it was undervalued. It was being hit by the so-called SaaS apocalypse, basically, where anything that is software, people are worrying that AI is just going to come along and tank everything, replace everything with AI-coded software. And whilst that is a real risk for lots of software stocks, I think it's actually more of a catalyst for a cybersecurity firm like Rubrik, because AI poses so many new cybersecurity threats that companies are going to want to get their hands on everything going, actually, which can help them protect against a lot of these zero-day vulnerabilities, which are being uncovered rapidly by software like Claude Mythos, for example, which was in the news recently. And a firm like Rubrik is specifically poised to be useful in the age of agentic AI. They're a leading-edge firm. They're not just some traditional crappy cybersecurity software company, as far as I'm aware. And so I've taken a punt on them. And my logic there was a combination of a genuine investment thesis and a bit of sort of medium-term trading, where I saw that structurally they were quite down from their all-time highs, and indeed they have rebounded quite a bit. And they also have earnings coming up soon. And so whether or not I'm holding Rubrik for the next several years, I think I will be deciding after the next earnings report, where we'll get some visibility into whether or not the agentic AI landscape is really going to be as much of a catalyst for them as I thought. And I will try and do a video on Rubrik in depth, and I'll be deciding whether or not I'm just going to take the profit I've made, which I should, the position overall, the position is worth £23,778.44, and it's up 12.44% currently. So I'll be making decisions about whether or not to fold that into another company or hold it for the long term in the coming weeks. Then we have CoreWeave at £11,816, which is up 23.62%. And just below that, a similar value, just under 10,000 in IREN Energy, which is up 21.36%. And both of those companies, again, they're fall into a similar category in terms of my investing thesis as Rubrik, where they'd had a big fall down from sort of hyped up highs, where I thought structurally they seemed that they were in a good buying range, and that proved to be true, because everything's bounced since the Iran war, which was a negative catalyst for lots of these stocks, but not really related to whether or not they were going to make money for the most part. So they've rebounded, and there's a lot of optimism for these companies for the future, because both CoreWeave and IREN are neocloud providers, where they buy a bunch of, for example, Nvidia GPUs, and then they're renting out that capacity to people who want to rent the GPUs to run software on them, basically. And I think that's going to be a highly profitable endeavor going forward. I mean, there are some difficulties with the upfront expenditure of acquiring and powering the devices, which is where they take on a lot of debt, and if people start to worry that, oh, well, they're going to make enough money to pay off that debt. But I think we saw with the recent earnings reports that things are moving in the right direction. And the third type of this company, which everybody knows, is Nebius. I don't own Nebius. I sold it after it had that big run up. I didn't have very much in it. But they actually turned profitable recently in their most earnings report. And I think the same will happen with IREN and CoreWeave, probably by the end of the year. And they'll have a lot of explosive upside. I mean, CoreWeave has much more in contracted revenue in the backlog than it actually the company than the net worth of the company. And they've got about $100 billion in revenue backlog, and the company's only worth something like 66 odd billion. So yeah, there's a lot of upside here, I think. 100%, hundreds of percent. We'll see how that all plays out. Now we're getting into the tail end of the portfolio here, but I also have ADURO Clean Technologies, which are a plastic recycling company, which is more exciting than it sounds. I'm going to release a video on ADURO soon. I've got 6,000 in this account, another 23 in the ISA, and a few thousand over in Trading 212, up around 30%. ADURO are exciting because they don't just recycle plastic in the sense of you can reuse the same plastic spoon or something, or turning plastic into other plastic shapes or something. They actually break the plastic down and turn it back into the raw hydrocarbons, which you can then use as fuel or direct them into all sorts of different uses. So they recapture a lot of value from plastic, which is otherwise just going to be thrown away and wouldn't normally be able to be captured by any normal recycling methods. So they've got an exciting new technology. That company is a big bet. It's either going to go to zero or be some kind of crazy 100x return. So we'll see how that one works out. And then finally, we have Micron Technologies. In my GIA, I've got £6.3 thousand of Micron, up 16.2%. There's a bit more of that in my ISA and a bit more of Micron. Well, actually, quite a lot more in Trading 212. It's my largest position over there, something around £40,000 worth of Micron, I think, which is, it was up really healthily and it's fallen back a bit in the last few days. I think overall it's going to be up something like 15% or 20% if you weight those positions. And I've grown increasingly high conviction with Micron because they were one of the three producers of high bandwidth memory, which is a key bottleneck for AI at this point, where there isn't enough memory capacity being produced, the price is skyrocketing, and it's directly benefiting Micron. And it seems to be closing in on a $1 trillion market cap quite soon. And they also have earnings coming up in a few weeks, and it should be spectacular. Micron is an interesting one, I would emphasize to people listening. None of this is financial advice. This is just me tracking my journey and, offering my opinion on things. But I think Micron is particularly interesting because their forward earnings are by far the lowest of any of the companies I've mentioned. It's something still around 7 right now. Depends which exact source you look at, but it's below 10. I would say, generally speaking, depending on your time horizon. So less than half of the forward earnings of Nvidia, and its price so low relative to its earnings because people worry that memory is highly cyclical. So there has been periods in the past where there's been a crunch in memory supply, prices have gone up, and then stock has rocketed, only to drop back down by more than 50%. So people worry that we're just seeing the same thing now. But I think AI is fundamentally different, where it's a structural change in the market, where there's going to be sustained and potentially expanding demand for memory capacity over the years, rather than some sort of run up due to hype around a new product like a laptop or a gaming console. I think it's vastly, vastly different. And I may be wrong. You know, that's the thing. You're taking risks with investing. I may be wrong. But based on all the interviews I've listened to and the data that I can find out there, I think it's highly unlikely that memory companies will be able to ramp up high bandwidth memory production to flood the market and reduce prices. I think, based on the trajectory of AI, that Micron could easily be one of my best performing companies with minimal risk, because they're just going to make so much money in the process. So we'll see how this all pans out. I'll be doing, I'll update on my progress next week. And just to sort of give some insight, the GIA is up £80,000 since I started investing. Total value of 130. Obviously, some money's moved in and out of that account, so the numbers get a bit confusing. And the ISA, which hasn't had any money taken out of it, is now worth 65, up 25. And if I go to my trading 212, just to finish the video off, if I can connect, here we go. Here, I've got a total value of 90,000. Total return on my GIA there, which is a new account, of 3.5 thousand, up 8%. And my stocks and shares ISA in 212, it's up around 15%, because it's 23,000 with an initial investment of 20,000. So there we go. And finally, I do have some UK government long dated gilts, 2065, which give something like 4% interest a year. They are definitely one of my worst investments ever. We'll do a video about bonds, why I invested in bonds and why I regret it, but they're definitely something that I'm sort of stuck with. I'm a bag holder in bonds. There we are. Growth stocks for the win. So yeah, that's everything for today, guys. I'll be updating this regularly, and as I say, if you've got your own portfolio that you want to share, or any comments on mine, whether you think it's a good set of stocks or a stupid set of stocks, do let me know. I look forward to seeing it. I read all the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.